law enforcement officer, a retired teacher as well, with service of families and students. And it's been members of that are elected and other. In addition, I've been writing that these fees will be sent to collections if in fact I do not pay them in due haste. And this regarding, despite the fact that my campaign finished up on May 6th after our primary and all funds were exhausted. I've been told that despite the fact that my reports have been made in good faith, followed protocol, and despite the fact that my primary was held back in May, I am being subjected to a new election laws that came into effect on July 1st. I've made every attempt to be compliant when filing, and as you can easily discover, my prior filings were prompt and accurate. The problem with my filings revolves around this one button on the comment system that says final report. I have placed our filings in there. We pressed the button that said final report and expected in good faith that that was in fact our final report. But unlike other mechanisms like those for consumers and such, your report is not kicked out. So you do not find out your failings until the penalty was received. Members of my campaign, and I've explained our plight to your department on several occasions. I've left detailed messages for the chairman and attempted to resolve this situation. I've spoken to Emily Minarski and communicated with Tammy Alexander as well. And I've been informed that these fines and additional penalties do not have a pathway for appeal. So unlike every other law in Virginia, I can't appeal it, but I am doing so today anyway. Overall, I would say that my situation has not been handled well. It is yet one more reason why regular folks do not run for office. It is my feeling that I should be offered a conference, perhaps face-to-face, to walk through a way to remedy my filings so I can finally close out this campaign. It is my hope that you can strike these assessed penalties and a detailed explanation can be provided to my campaign to allow us to correct any further errors by September 10th without penalty. I thank you for your time and look forward to your questions and decisions in this matter. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Next up.
This one. Thank you. Good afternoon, and thank you for your time. My name is Liz Burnison. I'm an attorney here in Richmond, and I'm here on behalf of Trudy Berry, the Democratic nominee for the 9th Senate District. I am here today to respectfully request that the board vote to certify Trudy Berry's candidacy as the Democratic nominee for the 9th Senate District. I've submitted a briefing to this board, so I won't belabor my points, and I'll talk quick and try to respect the time. The facts of this case aren't complicated. Ms. Berry timely and correctly filed her candidate qualification paperwork. She was then notified by her local party chair that her paperwork had been certified, she had done everything correctly, and they were going to certify her candidacy to the state board. She was the only candidate to qualify for the Democratic primary and thus automatically, by virtue of Virginia state statute, became the Democratic nominee for this district. It was then the duty of the local chair to certify Ms. Berry's candidacy to the state board. The local chair at that time was a woman named Clem Oliver. Ms. Oliver, at the time this happened, was gravely ill, battling cancer, and has since passed away. But Ms. Oliver, at this time, when she certified Ms. Berry's candidacy to the state board via email, she made a typo. She misspelled the recipient's email address by leaving off the .gov on that email, and the board didn't timely receive Ms. Berry's candidacy. But the thing about this circumstance is it's not new and it's not unique. At least 5 times since 2019, the state board has confronted identical circumstances from other candidates. Between 2019 and 2021, at least 5 candidates, Delegate Kilgore, LaRock, CRCA Lang and Jenkins all had the same circumstances. They all properly and timely filed their candidate paperwork, and then a local party chair made a mistake that would have kept them off the ballot, but the board properly and correctly voted to certify their candidacies. Today, Ms. Berry is asking only for the same treatment under the same circumstances and for all the same reasons that this board properly and correctly voted to certify these other candidates. The board cited a few important factors in making those decisions that apply with full force here. One, the candidate was diligent and compliant. There's no question here that Trudy is the candidate and complied with all of her requirements. Two, the error by the party chair it was part of a process completely beyond the candidate's control. And three, this board correctly brought up the extremely important constitutional rights at issue when we're talking about ballot access. If the board does not vote to certify Ms. Berry's candidacy or chooses not to take a vote today or at another meeting, roughly 155,000 voters in Senate District 9 will have no choice on the ballot in November because of a 3-letter typo made by a woman who was gravely ill. That is really an unconscionable result, and this board has the authority to avoid that unconscionable result. Okay, thank you. The board has the authority to avoid this unconscionable result by voting to certify her candidacy in line with its prior precedent, and I would ask that you do so today. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next.
Next, I have Ken. Okay, so
Members of the Virginia Board of Elections, my name is Ken Narr, and I'm speaking to address the matter concerning my former candidacy of the Republican nomination for Chair of the Prince William Board of County Supervisors. As a first-time candidate running a campaign on my own, I'd like to offer my testimony regarding online advertisement published by Potomac Local, which inadvertently lacked the proper disclaimer. I want to assure the board that this was an unintentional error, and upon informed of the issue, I took prompt and corrective action. I endeavored to run an honest and transparent campaign. As a newcomer to the political arena, I relied on my limited knowledge and vendors' expertise to assist me in navigating the campaign landscape. Potomac Local, a reputable online outlet, was one such entity I entrusted to design and disseminate campaign information. During the course of my campaign, I hired Potomac Local to create a series of online advertisements. The first and only the first that they published was done without the proper disclosure that should have accompanied it. As soon as I became aware of the oversight, I took immediate action. I contacted Potomac Local and appraised them of the situation and emphasized the importance of adhering to the legal requirements regarding campaign advertisement and requested they rectify the issue immediately. From that experience, I learned a valuable lesson that to run a campaign, I needed to be an expert on all the rules and laws that not depend on anyone else. From that point on, all of my main online ads, brochures, radio, sports, bumper stickers, flyers contain the proper disclosures. I want to stress my campaign had no intention of skirting any election rules or regulations, and I deeply regret that such an oversight occurred. As a retired Marine, I value integrity and accountability. As a first-time candidate, I recognize there might have been areas that I lacked in experience, but I made sincere efforts to learn from my mistakes. However, election rules, regardless of the level of government, should not be used as political weapons to hurt political opponents or discourage persons from running for public office. In conclusion, I stand before this board and take full responsibility for the advertisement oversight. I assure the board that this was an unintended mistake and immediate action was taken to rectify the situation. I extend my gratitude to the board and for allowing me the opportunity to clarify this matter.
Thank you very much, Mr. Knopf. Let me make a clarification. Your issue is in the stand by your ad section of the agenda, and we'll take those testimony. You're welcome to stay and speak again. I'll permit that because of this, but this is for anything else either on the agenda or not. Save the stand by your ad, which will be heard individually at that point in the agenda. So thank you, sir. All right, next.
With that being said, Tom McKenna, would you like to speak during the stand by your ad portion of the agenda? Okay, So that would mean next is Miss Irene.
Good afternoon. My name is Irene Turns, and I'm from Charles City. For the past two meetings, we have brought to you our concerns over the issue of votes already being tallied on the machine at the early voting opening on March 13th for our special election in this year. The 15 votes were reflected in a public number which should have read 0 at the opening. After the last meeting, we were given some guidance by Mr. John Nunnally, first Vice President of the Virginia Electoral Board Association. He suggested that the 15 votes were more than likely just the votes from the LNA held on March 7th that were not zeroed out correctly. He suggested we FOIA the receipts for the closing of the LNA on March 7th and the opening of early voting on March 13th. On July 14th, I submitted a FOIA to our county registrar for those two receipts, as well as the March 25th closing tape from the early voting. July 26, 2 weeks after submitting my FOIA, I received a copy of the receipt for the opening of the LNA on March 7th and the closing. I did not receive any other receipts, which are the opening and the closing of the early voting in person on March 28th. Starting 13th to March 28th. I did not notice that the protected number from the opening of the LNA and the opening of the early voting increased by 48. That means 33 votes were passed through this machine during the LNA, which seems like a large number to test for a two-person party ballot. When I contacted Ms. Danae Harris, our registrar, about missing FOIA receipts, she said that I would have to get them from the clerk of court. On July 31st, I went to the clerk of court and asked if she could give me the receipts. She said she was not allowed to open the sealed envelopes without the court order. Upon contacting Mr. Nunley and attorney Chris Morstan, it was suggested that I file a petition of mandamus with the court to get Ms. Harris to uphold the FOIA. I filed this petition on August 11th. Our registrar and her assistant stated they can open an early voting machine anytime after LNA is complete. There were several websites posting that this special election was to begin March 13th. Can you explain who makes the decision when the early voting is to begin? Thank you.
Very much. Thank you.
Next, I have Shyam Raman.
Good afternoon, members of the board. I'm Shyam Raman, Executive Director of the Democratic Party of Virginia. I have a letter here from Chairwoman Swecker regarding Trudy Berry as the Senate District 9 Democratic nominee that I would like to read and will provide via electronic copy after this meeting. Members of the State Board of Elections, the Democratic Party of Virginia writes to you advocating for the nomination of Trudy Berry for the Senate of Virginia in the 9th Senate District. Ms. Berry is the duly chosen nominee of the Democratic Party in the 9th Senate District and was certified by the chair of the Democratic Nominating Committee thereof. Due to a typographical error, the Department of Elections appears not to have received the certification, making her the nominee. On February 15, 2023, DPVA Chairwoman Susan Swecker communicated the party's desire to nominate all candidates for General Assembly via state-run primary. Candidates for Senate nominated in state-run primaries need to file a declaration of candidacy, filing fee receipt, and the petition signatures for 250 voters within their district. Ms. Berry met those requirements and properly filed in a timely manner with the nominating committee of Senate District 9. When no other candidates filed their declaration of candidacy with the Democratic Nominating Committee, Ms. Berry should have automatically become the Democratic nominee for the Senate District 9 once the filing window closed on April 6th. See code 242526. At 5:50 p.m. on April 10th, 2023, Clemenia Oliver, the nominating committee chairwoman for the 9th Senate District, sent an email certifying the nomination of Ms. Berry to EA@elections.virginia. We do not know if Ms. Oliver received a bounce back or automated response after omitting the .gov from the Department of Elections email address. So concluding, we would ask that Ms. Berry's name be included on the general election ballot as the Democratic nominee for the 9th Senate District for a few reasons. First, she did comply with all legal requirements that the state law imposed on her, timely and properly completed all of the requisite candidate paperwork. Second, there is no question that Ms. Berry is the only candidate who properly filed all of the requirements by April 26th at 5 p.m. At 5:01 p.m. on April 6th, Ms. Berry should have automatically become the Democratic nominee for Senate District 9. And finally, it's clear that Chairwoman Oliver intended to certify Ms. Berry as the nominee in Senate District 9. A typographical error in the email address does not negate that fact that she made every effort she was able to in order to certify Ms. Berry as the nominee. We further request a discussion with the Department of Election staff, and honestly, if the state board wants to form a working group to find a solution regarding candidate filing procedures prior to January 1st, 2024, when the new version of 24-509 goes into effect that has the practical effect of defaulting all partisan nominations to primaries, and would love to have that conversation to find a legislative solution to prevent this in future years.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your last comments. I will just share with everybody that over the last several years that I've been involved, we've heard these on an individual basis, and some have been approved and some have not been approved, and they were bipartisan. There were both parties involved in that. You may well know that Matthew Weinstein has also articulated an interest in this. And I think we would be very glad to work with you all in the department and see if there's some things we can do tangibly to reduce the likelihood of this happening in the future. My predecessor, Bob Brink, sort of had an evolution on this, and I will just remind everybody that the very first meeting this year of the state board, we admonished every candidate to be sure and close the loop and don't accept that things went through. And I think there are checks and balances that we can look at and certainly try to make better. So I do appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Thank you for your time.
Next.
Next, I have Phyllis.
Rena?
I'm sorry,
Rena?
Rena.
Good afternoon. My name is Phyllis Rena. I live in the city of Richmond. I'm an election officer, and I perform pre-processing cap and post-cap duties for 6 elections since November 2021. My comments pertain to your agenda item, cap policy. The language of the policy appears to be almost entirely dedicated to the second portion of the policy's purpose. Second little I, directing the Department of Elections to post the results of all absentee ballots cast during an election no later than noon on the 7th calendar day following the election. This portion of the policy is well written and gives clear direction. However, the first stated purpose of the policy, which is stating requirements related to pre-processing absentee ballots received prior to election day and processing absentee ballots on election day, is woefully inadequate as written and could result in open to misinterpretation of the code. As written, there are actually no stated requirements related to the actual pre-processing of absentee ballots received prior to, on election day, or afterwards, except related to the timing of performing such duties. In contrast, the first stated purpose of the policy is not to state the timing of duties, but to state the requirements related to pre-processing absentee ballots at the intervals when they're received. The only mention of the actual pre-processing of ballots is located in Section 3, where it states that primarily the term pre-processing refers to the pre-election day process of removing ballots from their B envelopes and inserting those ballots into the scanning equipment. As an election officer performing this work on literally thousands of absentee ballots over the last 6 elections, I can assure you that our primary purpose and work is not the manual exercise of removing the ballot from the envelope and putting it in the machine. The primary purpose of our work is to carefully review the voter statement on envelope B. That information, it needs to be accurate and in accordance with the code. this is the majority of the work that our teams work to ensure, to the greatest extent possible, that where material information is missing or inaccurate, the voter is contacted to make corrections if they so choose, at which point then the envelope B is opened and the ballot is cast, with the only mention of actual pre-processing suggesting it is merely the task of removing and inserting the ballot into the scanning equipment, otherwise known as the optical scanner. That's both misleading and inadequate to describe the counting of ballots or meeting the plain language of the policy purpose. I recommend and respectfully request that you do one of the following. Either restate the policy purpose to match the background information in the memorandum from Rachel Lawless dated today to you as the board under sections I and 2i about reporting absentee ballots cast, which is what the policy actually describes, or alternatively, revise the policy to actually state the requirements related to pre-processing ballots and the relevant code and administrative code sections. Under either option, the description of pre-processing the current version of the policy needs to be revised and restated to accurately convey pre-processing duties.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Next, I have Daryl Bowe.
Hello, Mr. Chairman. I was here this time last year. My name is Daryl Bowe. I'm from Spotsylvania County, retired federal law enforcement officer, United States Marine, 13 years military service. I've taken an approach to election integrity like I would as a law enforcement officer, looking for facts and evidence, the who, what, when, where, why, and how. I can be honest with you, I've learned a lot more than I would care to know about elections, and I still feel like I'm only scraping the surface of a very complicated system that is not for the average citizen. That's why most average citizens don't even get involved. It's too complicated to understand it. And so given the fact that we've spent 2.5 years of researching this system and looking into the facts, we found out that the federal government monitors your elections all the way down to the county level. According to the documents, right here, all 50 states and 98% of your counties, states and counties are being monitored by the federal government through a nonprofit group known as the Center for Internet Security. Most people do not know this. Your legislators don't even know about this. When I approach them, talk with them about it, they have no clue about it. It is the first known MOA. This is grassroots citizens doing the digging and research in the state of Virginia, discovering this, that the MOA at VITA, Virginia Information Technology Agency, was one of the first ones that signed off allowing the federal government access into our systems. What we have discovered is that you have MOAs in Loudoun County, Fairfax, Prince William, or that there's possibly software installed, but they're monitoring our elections under the guise of internet protection for systems that don't connect to the internet. And so they're providing this protection, I guess, to protect us from the Russians hacking. And so we continue to dig and research, and what we found and discovered is very unsettling. There's an article here, it talks about the poll pads in Dallas County, Texas. I am going to talk about another state for a second, adding hundreds of voters in real time as the poll is being closed. The poll workers caught it on live video. We have that. There is a lawsuit pending in that case. When we started working, like in November last year, we had a lot of volunteers in the state of Virginia. Here's some picture images of the Wi-Fi screens that we took from several precincts in Spotsylvania County. And what we noticed was that there is a particular one that is repeated over and over. It's EPTnet.VASA. That shows that the poll books are connecting to the internet, which the code allows it. Our poll books can connect to the internet. But the concerning thing that we found is in this article that just recently dropped yesterday, and the title of it is "The Bombshell Conclusive: Nationwide Cellular Network Connects Election Equipment and Gives Federal Government Access to Election Systems at the Precinct Level." They're monitoring our elections in real time. If by chance we had a bureaucrat in charge of an agency, it wouldn't take very many people to be able to alter and manipulate the systems and flip votes, change elections. And this is an agency that says that they're using a nonprofit group, 501c3, CIS.
3 minutes, so reach your.
I didn't hear the alarm activation.
Sorry,
Oh, okay.
that's fine. Take
So, but at any point,
Sure.
transparency in the election process has been taken away. If it's electronic, we can't confirm it. Just one other thing about Virginia audit. In Spotsylvania County, we have 75,317 voters in the 2020 election. We're missing 2,080 voters from the official VHL that came from elect. When we got the voter rolls, we're missing 2,080 people. My name is missing from that voter roll.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next, I have Jasmine Lipscomb.
Aloha, gentlemen and ladies. My name is Jasmine Lipscomb, and I am a substitute teacher down in Danville, Virginia. I am a 12-year veteran of the Marine Corps. I come to you today to request to have the board members to place my name in nomination for HD 49. Due to the grave illness of the nominating chair, Clemmy Oliver, regretfully deceased now, whose vote was a key vote in my process, and due to the nominating committee being improperly constituted by the local committees, I was denied a fair and proper nominating process. Now, on the state level, I did submit my CCQ and my OEI in a timely fashion. I also, I did miss the deadline for my caucus because I started as a non-primary April 24th, and they gave me 7 days to get $500. And my signatures, which I didn't have the money at the time because I was just starting, but my angel donor, Master Sergeant Daphne Scott, who's here, she did end up giving me the $500. And once I got my check and my signatures, Patricia Harper Tonley denied me of receiving it and conceded to the Republican in our area. That I have put a complaint in at that level, and today is my day to check in with them to see where that's at. But at the state level, because I did abide by the state rules before the June 20th deadline, I am requesting that I have an opportunity to be put on the nomination. I was the only one in my area in HD 49 to step up and run as a candidate. And I wanted to put my request in to let you all know that I am still here, I am still available, and I still would love to run if that is possible. And if you choose not to choose me, I would greatly appreciate if you do put Trudy Berry on the ballot, because her district covers my district as well. And at least we'll still have voters having a diverse opportunity. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome.
Next, I have Daphne Portis.
Good afternoon, board members. My name is Daphne Portis, Master Sergeant retired. And I'm here in support of my sisters in arms, Trudy Berry and Jasmine Lipscomb. I served 23 years in the Air Force in many countries. So I'm acutely aware of how important the fair election process is. While Virginia is better than most states, I must say, with their elections, we can do better. We really can. And in this era of electronics, paperwork errors and delays, it should be able to be rectified a lot easier. So please put my sisters in arms on the ballot in November, Jasmine Lipscomb and Trudy Berry. And thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much.
Go Air Force.
So those are all the names that I have in person. Is there anyone name that's not on the sign-up sheet that would like to speak? So online, I have Ned Jones.
Welcome, Mr. Jones.
Yeah, thank you very much. Excuse me. I'm going to talk about transparency today. Perhaps the lack of transparency is a better way to put it. I found a simple definition. Excuse me. Transparency is the quality of being easily seen through. Well, transparency in a business or governance context refers to being open and honest. As part of corporate governance, best practices, this requires disclosure of all relevant information so that others can make informed decisions. Unfortunately, this board and the Virginia Department of Elections conducts the business of election administration with a lack of transparency. Here's an example of what I'm talking about. I've been researching the USPS election mail system, the largest precinct in our elections, for over 2.5 years. In May, I attended a one-day election mail seminar in Charlotte and met the USPS election mail national manager and our regional representative at that conference. We talked about setting up a citizens forum to provide a platform for an exchange of ideas between postal officials and citizens. Up until now, there has been no citizen observation or any involvement in the USPS election mail system. Again, the largest precinct in our election. They told me that they would be in Richmond for a presentation about the election mail system in July. I thought that would be a great opportunity to hear their presentation and spend some time with them. Just like you all, there is no transparency with the USPS, and I have basically been ignored since that seminar. I was looking forward to meeting them at the presentation in Richmond to renew the discussion of the forum. As the day of the presentation approached, there was no public notice from the Department of Elections about the time or location. I found Commissioner Beer's email and wrote to her for the details about the presentation. She informed me that it was a private meeting and not open to the public. That's the lack of transparency that I'm talking about. There is nothing to hide. After the presentation, I submitted a FOIA request for the information, and as you may suspect, there was no there. It would have been a great transparency opportunity to have the public at the presentation. The board's public comment guidelines also lack transparency. 3 minutes, no questions, no answers. Now you have restricted transparency even more, removing the public comment after the introduction and discussion of agenda items, so there is no opportunity for the public to respond. The party of the governor is supposed to be running elections in Virginia, but you have just continued the policies and procedures of the old administration. It's like Northam's board and Piper are still running our elections. We certainly expected more transparency with Youngkin's board and our new commissioner. Millions of voters have lost their trust and confidence in our elections. The way for you, our top election officials, to rebuild that trust and confidence is to be totally transparent. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Jones, for your criticisms. Was that meeting the registrar training meeting?
Yes.
So I don't comment on every public comment, but the code provides that the department do a training session for the registrars. The code does not recommend or contemplate that being open to the public. So if you want to get with your elected officials and change the code, we would certainly abide by that. But thank you for your
I think that there's probably some discretion there where portions of that meeting could have been public, but you know, there's nothing to hide, sir. Nothing to hide.
Next, I have Anne Gregorian.
Yes, thank you very much. I would like to comment on agenda item section 7 of the Officer of Election Training Standards and Materials. The current training fails to address driver privilege cards and ID privilege cards. These two cards are the only form of voter ID specifically prohibited by 24.2643 and are exclusively issued to undocumented immigrants. Governor Northam amended the legislation on these IDs to require that they are identical in appearance to a Virginia driver's license and a Virginia identity card. This requirement makes a privilege card difficult to recognize when presented at the polls. After this problem was raised in 2022, ELECT released a technical advisory on driver privilege cards. The advisory is insufficient in detail and lacks any mention of the second form of prohibited ID, the identity privilege card. The identity privilege card is also missing from the current voter identification chart. It has now been almost a year since this issue was addressed by elect. There continues to be no action in the training policy to address these prohibited forms of ID. I emailed Ms. Sarah Daly, Training and Development Supervisor at elect, on August 9th. I never received a response from her on this matter. I also sent a copy of my email to the board. I'm requesting the following training on driver privilege cards and identity privilege cards be included in elect's official training guide up for approval today and only updated every 2 years. So number one, how to recognize a privilege card. Because the law requires a privilege card to look just like a valid driver's license, election officials must be trained on how to locate the key indicators. This includes the coded restriction number 9, decoded text of limited duration on the back of the card, a 2-year expiration date for driver privilege cards, and a 4-year expiration date for an identity privilege card. Number 2, what the election officials should do if presented with one of these IDs. That number was not standardized last year, and many localities just kind of did their own thing when presented with one of these cards. Number 3, provide sample images of these cards in the training, much the same that current policy manual provides several images of acceptable forms of ID. Visuals always enhance retention of information. So Virginia law is explicit that a driver privilege card and identification privilege card are prohibited forms of ID for voting purposes. I am asking elect and this board to give election officials the basic tools to be confident in their task to carry out their sworn duties and uphold the laws of the Commonwealth. Thank you for your time.
Thank you very much.
That is all the public comment I have online.
All right, I want to thank everybody in the room as well as online for your animated interest in the election system in Virginia, and hopefully things will work smoothly this fall. All right, Commissioner Beals.
Chairman O'Bannon, members of the board, I wanted to update you on some of the work of the department recently. We recently completed our second national change of address mailing for this calendar year. We are also preparing for the special election that has been called for August 29th. We have worked inside the department with localities to set up this election in Veris, which must be run on old lines. We have proof ballots. Those ballots are being delivered this week to localities, and early voting is going to begin this Saturday, following LNA testing of the machines. I would like to specifically thank the registrars of Wythe, Smith, and Carroll counties. In Wythe, it is Lennon Counts, in Smith, it is Shannon Williams, and in Carroll, it is Stacy Rivas, for their fabulous attitudes in taking on this new challenge and working with us to make sure that voters have an opportunity to heed their voice to the discussion on this vacancy. On today's agenda, the board is going to hear an update on the locality election security standards and is going to be asked to consider the CAP policy, a split precinct request, Officer of Elections training, and recount standards. And then finally, the board is going to hear multiple stand by your ad complaints for consideration at the end of the meeting. And that's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. Next agenda item is locality election security standards. And do we need to go into closed session, or is there a presentation first? Okay. Welcome.
Good afternoon, members of the board. Thank you very much. My name is Arielle Schneider. I am the Privacy Officer for the Virginia Department of Elections, and I am also, it's my great honor to be the chair for the Virginia Voter Registration Systems Security Work Group. 2 of the members are here today in person, and several others are here virtually and will be joining us in the closed session. So it is both on behalf of the department and on the Virginia Voter Registration Systems Security Work Group that I present before you today. I have a few notes for open session, and then I will ask that you state the motion that will bring us into closed session. So first, I'd like to just note the members of the VRSS that are here with us today in person and virtually. We have John Harrison, who is currently the Director of Information Technology for Franklin County.
Raise your hand, stand up, all right.
And we are also very, very excited that he will be joining the department in just a week and a half to be our new Director of Information Security. So we're really, really thrilled at this development because we will have an incredibly experienced leader working with us and the localities moving forward. We are also joined by Jason Corwin, the General Registrar from Mecklenburg County. And we really appreciate Jason because he is not only an experienced and gifted general registrar, but he comes to us with a full technology background. He has implemented county technology systems at locality levels and brings that dual expertise that we have found incredibly helpful to our work. We are also joined virtually by Benetta Pledger, the CIO for the city of Alexandria, by Jeff Waters, the Director of Infrastructure for Hanover County, Suzanne Tills, the CIO for Fredericksburg, Virginia, Elizabeth Lowe, the CIO for Bedford, Dusty Moyer, who handles information technology in Rockingham County, and Gretchen Reinmeyer, RGR in Arlington City. We have several other members of our committee who are not able to join for one reason or the other, but I wanted to note them because we only appear before you twice a year, and yet this group meets throughout the year to prepare for these two meetings. So this is the first year that we will be presenting to you twice. The Code of Virginia 24.2-410.2 requires that the state board consult with representatives of local government, technology, and general registrars, and requires that the board update the security standards annually by November 30th. So for the last 4 years, we've presented before you in November, but this last November, we made some changes to the program. We presented before you a set of standards that you passed, and the set of standards that you passed changed not only the standards that localities would adhere to, but the process by which we elect would work with the localities to collect the reporting information and how we would act on that reporting information, with a goal to identify the low-hanging fruit, the critical gaps, and be able to better advise you. So this meeting today, what we will shortly go into closed session to discuss are the incredibly sensitive results of the reports that we requested from all of the 133 localities. And so to discuss that, I would request that the board make a motion to go into closed session, but of course, please feel free to ask any questions before you do so.
So just for background for the public, this got stood up about 2 years ago, maybe more, as a result of legislation to get at the issue of safety and integrity in elections.
Yes, sir.
And in Virginia, we've got tiny little counties and we got huge cities and counties. And so what this group has done is try to get the floor higher and get the ceiling as high as we can get it on all of these issues that relate to election integrity and safety. So we'll be pleased to hear a motion to go into closed session.
Mr. Chairman, pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2, 3711A 34, I move that the board go into closed session for the purpose of discussing voting security matters made confidential pursuant to 24.2-410.2 in accordance with Section 2.2-3712F. Susan Bills, Commissioner of Elections, Travis Andrews of the Office of the Attorney General, Ariel Schneider, Elect Data Privacy Officer and VRSS Chair, and VRSS Advisory Members John Harrison, Benetta Pledger, Jeff Waters, Suzanne Tills, Elizabeth Lowe, Jason Corwin, Gretchen Ringmeyer, and Kirk Lortz will attend the closed session because they're present will reasonably aid the board in its consideration of the subject of the meeting.
Is there a second?
Second.
Call the roll.
Chairman O'Bannon. Vice Chair Dance.
Aye.
Delegate Merrick's.
Aye.
Mr. Weinstein.
Aye.
Georgia Almas Long, aye.
All right. Thank you very much. Franchelle, if you can work your magic and get the in the room people and the online people that are supposed to be here for this done, and we'll hopefully get this done efficiently.
Hi, how you doing?
And John and Jason, if you wouldn't mind joining me at the front.
Yeah. Good. All right, I've been trying. All right. All right.
Hi, Roz.
Hello, John. Can you hear me okay?
It's unclear. I don't know. Yeah, I didn't give them that guidance, so I'm not sure. That will be a casualty.
Sessions, technical nature. Systems.
Yes, ma'am. Yes. And she does often call in. Mike really picks up.
Yeah, that one does. Gotta be gallon bags.
Should not be broadcast.
I get a clean sandwich.
Suzanne had a meeting to go through at 1:30, so I wanted to leave her on in case, but she may not be able to make it. Are we good to,
Because we're, me and Jay have to leave too, it's just that we have.
oh, I forgot. Okay, okay. Jeff Waters. No. Yes.
Where are they taking?
No. No.
Sorry.
Didn't they let go of the thing that just, I like the only thing I don't like is the.
No.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, I've heard Virginia before.
Okay, so just FYI. Rep orders heard, but he didn't hear what they had. But we have phone numbers, don't have names, have phone numbers.
So, okay, so are we still live now?
No, don't,
Okay.
don't go live, don't say anything.
Well, how many people do we have to kick out?
One person.
Okay, so yeah, SC Jones is,
Okay, so then, well, everyone else so those are the only people that we have in here right now.
I would,
Gretchen, Jeff, and Kurt.
great.
So Elizabeth, Vanetta, and John Harrison?
Elizabeth is likely the county of Bedford, if you saw that.
Oh, okay.
And John Harrison's here,
Wait, you said Elizabeth is who?
county of Bedford.
Bedford?
Oh, so I just.
Okay. Hold on, let me put her back there. Go back. So she might be gone.
That's okay.
Okay. so
I'll
everyone-
apologize to her later, yeah.
Right, and
Can you just confirm again, like triple check that everybody who is on is authorized? So sorry. And also that the setting. I don't know. It's not.
Mr. Chairman, I move to reconvene the meeting in open session and take a roll call vote certifying that to the best of each member's knowledge, only such public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under this chapter, and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard or discussed by the State Board of Election.
Second.
Chairman O'Bannon.
Aye.
Vice Chair Dance.
Aye.
Delegate Merrick.
Aye.
Mr. Weinstein.
Aye.
Secretary Elvis Long, aye.
Great, thank you very much. Next item on the agenda is item 7, cap policy. Ms. Lawless, welcome.
Good afternoon, members of the board. I'm before you once again to present the CAP policy, which was presented during the last State Board of Elections meeting. We have made some small tweaks to the policy, adding some clarifying language, and we had a review of the Office of the Attorney General. That being said, just to give you some general background for those folks that weren't tuned in last time, Chapter 152 of the 2023 Acts of Assembly of the Commonwealth of Virginia directs the State Board of Elections to adopt a policy regarding the counting and reporting of absentee ballots in central absentee voter precincts, colloquially known as CAP. In order to ensure that, 1, the results of absentee ballots cast early in person are reported separately from mailed absentee ballots and are posted promptly on the State Board's website, and 2, the results of all absentee ballots cast by voters are reported by precinct in accordance with the law and are posted on the State Board's website no later than noon on the 7th day, calendar day following the election. The bill requires such policy to be adopted no later than September 1st, 2023, and the chairman of the House Senate Committees of Privileges and Elections to be notified of this policy within 7 days of its adoption. So the attached policy reflects current best practices within the department and centralizes already existing guidance. It also encapsulates current regulations. And we just sort of put that into one easily accessible document. So that being said, I'm sure the board has questions and I'm happy to take those.
All right, any members have any questions? Can you just very briefly tell me what the substance of the revisions were?
They addressed the public comments that happened during the last meeting. So there was some clarifying language added to, give me a second here to find it.
Page 20.
I believe it was 3 general requirements, clarifying language, around officers of election and authorized representatives.
Sounded legalese to me. Circumstances prevent a general registrar from complying with this requirement. Such failures shall not be grounds for contesting the election. Sounded like a lawyer recommendation. Okay, all right. Then no further comments. Is there a motion?
I just have one quick comment, sorry.
Oh, sure.
Thank you, Ms. Lawless, for revising this, and thank you, Mr. Andrews, for looking into the issue I raised last time. I'm supportive of this. I think it's great. The only thing I'd flag is, it references 1 VAC 20-70-40, which is the regulation implementing some of this. And I think some language in there is a little broad and not consistent with code. So I don't think it's urgent by any means, but we may want to revisit that regulation at some point.
We will note that. I also brought the regulation right here if you want to revise it today, or we can approach that in another meeting.
Not quite ready, so maybe another meeting.
All right.
Will do. Thank you.
We'll ask you all to work on that. All right. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move that the board adopt the proposed policy regarding the counting and reporting of absentee ballots in the central absentee voter precinct.
Thank you. Is there a second? Second. All right. Please call the roll.
Chairman O'Bannon.
Aye.
Vice Chair Dance.
Aye.
Delegate Merrick.
Aye.
Mr. Weinstein.
Aye.
Secretary Elvis Long, aye.
All right. Thank you very much. Not seeing Ms. Scott in the room, I'm going to assume Ms. Lowell. Oh, there you are. Oh, hey, come on up. I'm sorry. Is Rachel going to do it?
I'm going to take the lead on this one, but Claire did a lot of the legwork, so I want to make sure to acknowledge her, and she's available for any questions that you
All
may
right.
have. Moving forward. Pursuant to 24.2-671.2D of the Code of Virginia, the Virginia Department of Elections, the Loudoun County Office of Elections and Voter Registration, and the Loudoun County Electoral Board coordinated a pre-certification risk-limiting audit of the June 2023 Democratic primary for House of Delegates District 26 using the batch comparison method of conducting RLAs. Despite initial pilots conducted in 2018, the audit was the first risk-limiting audit that used the newly approved batch comparison method of conducting a risk-limiting audit in the Commonwealth. The race was unanimously approved for audit on Tuesday, June 27th, 2023. The race had a margin of 35.58%. The locality had 4 days to conduct the audit. Timelines were significantly shortened to conduct an RLA of a primary. A representative sample of 10 precincts was chosen at random and counted by hand. 9,702 ballots were audited. The audit took 3.5 hours with 6 teams of audit review boards. The risk limit was met in the first round of counting, confirming the accuracy of the results reported by the voting system. I wanted to give a special thank you to the following people who helped make this audit a success. The staff of the Loudoun County Office of Voter Registration, especially Ricky Keach and Judy Brown, the general registrar there. They were organized, they had a great room set up, everybody was very cooperative. The members of the Loudoun County Electoral Board. And while I oversaw the audit, I want to internally recognize 2 people. Claire Scott, who did a lot of work on physically running the audit and drafted most of this report, as well as Uda Kamar, who works in our security team as an engineer and jumped in to learn this process and attended the RLA. The team is reviewing the manual for updates, so stay tuned. I know that's exciting reading for you all. So without further ado, any questions?
Ms. Scott, do you have anything to add?
I thought it was very well. Again, very appreciative to General Registrar of Loudoun County.
Thank you. I do think we learned a lot. I mean, historically, we've not recommended these because of the tight timelines and some of the other challenges, but as it turns out, I think it was a success and we learned some things. And one of the things you learn is it can be done. So, all right. Well, thank you very much. All we need to do is accept this report, right? We don't need.
Correct. We're statutorily required to present a report to you that sort of summarizes what happened.
So thank you all very much. And thanks to all the folks who did the work.
Thank you.
All right. Now, you do come to the mic, Clint. Welcome.
Hello, everybody. Good afternoon, members of the State Board of Elections. I come to you once again for our favorite thing, split precincts. Today we have a split precinct waiver request for Bedford County. As you may remember, the Code of Virginia authorizes the State Board of Elections to grant a waiver to administer a split precinct if the governing body of a locality is unable to establish a precinct with the minimum number of registered voters without splitting the precinct pursuant to 24.2-307. For a county, the minimum number is 100 registered voters, and for a city, the minimum is 500 registered voters. Today, we have Bedford County. They are applying for a split between the 51st and 53rd House of Delegate districts. The split will affect 69 residents there, and since this is below the 100 registered voter minimum, elect recommends approving the split precinct.
Great. Thank you very much. Any questions? All right. Is there a motion?
Chairman, I move that the State Board of Elections approve the split precinct waiver for Bedford County. Second.
Thank you very much. Please call the roll.
Chairman O'Bannon.
Aye.
Vice Chair Dance.
Aye.
Delegate Merrick.
Aye.
Mr. Weinstein.
Aye.
Secretary Elvis Long, aye.
Great.
Good.
Thank you very much.
Possible you could speak into the mic a little bit louder? Just to have an issue.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right. Item 10, Officer of Election Training. Ms. Dally.
Hi, good afternoon. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, pursuant to the Code of Virginia 24.2103D, the State Board of Elections is required to set the training standards for the officers of election and to develop standardized training programs to be conducted by the local electoral boards and the general registrars. The board is also required to provide standardized training materials for such training, and an online course must be available on the Department of Elections website. The board is required to review the standardized training materials and the content of the online training course every 2 years in the year immediately following a general election for federal office. Staff have reviewed this training to ensure that it is compliant with past legislation and provides a comprehensive overview for all localities. The course materials are available for your review in your working papers. I would like to note that we have improved the course formatting in response to locality comments. Previously, the Officer of Election course was a series of PDFs and associated separate quizzes that had to be printed and shared individually. This was a challenge for participants and those maintaining accountability for completion. To that end, the Officer of Election Training Series is now a single online interactive course that allows users to engage with the information through a series of 11 lessons and activities that result in a certificate upon completion that can be shared for proof of completion and accountability. Therefore, staff recommends that the board adopt the amended training materials for the Officers of Election as presented, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have at this time.
Anybody have any questions? I have to say, this is my favorite slide in the deck.
You're welcome. I do try.
All right. Motion?
Mr. Chair, I move that the board approve the department's proposed changes to the training standards and training materials for officers of election.
Second?
Second.
Thank you. Please call the roll.
Chairman O'Bannon.
Aye.
Vice Chair Dance.
Aye.
Delegate Merrick.
Aye.
Mr. Weinstein.
Aye.
Secretary Elvis Long, aye.
All right. Thank you very much. Mr. Cosby, welcome.
Hello, Mr. Chair, members of the board. I'm here today to present to you revisions to the recount instructions, which were included in your packets. The two main issues that are being addressed with these revisions relate to multi-winner elections and ranked choice voting elections. So in relation to multi-winner races, Chapter 219 of the Acts of Assembly of 2023 required that the board produce additional instructions and standards related to recounts for multi-winner races. Prior to this, the recount provisions do not contemplate multi-winner races, so there's nothing that directs how that should be done. So the procedures in general would not change much, whether it's a standard race or multi-winner, but the big issue is determining which candidates are party to the recount. And this has been an issue going back several years. Recount courts have made different decisions about which winners in a multi-winner race are necessary parties to an election. Some recount courts have said that you only need to name one winner, the winner that's within the margin of the losing candidate. But other courts have suggested that either all winners are necessary parties or at a minimum, they have to be notified of the proceedings because they have an interest. The underlying part of the code that says who qualifies for a recount talks about a losing candidate and the winning candidate that they're within a margin of. This new legislation did not change that at all. So that makes it a little bit tricky in making a general rule about who parties are. So the approach that we took in this was to name one winning candidate, the person with the lowest vote total of all of the winning candidates, and then to list all of the other winners on the petition and ensure that all of those winners are also served with the petition, and then suggest to the court that in the preliminary hearing for the recount that the addition of any of these other winners as parties to the recount should be handled upfront to ensure that everybody has an opportunity. This is a legal issue about whether to add parties or not. So it was our feeling that this still should be left to the courts to decide. We put some parameters and guardrails in place to ensure that all of these parties have an opportunity. So the added provisions related to these multi-winner elections, one winner named as the party, all others must be listed and served, and then the court, it's suggested that they handle any motions about adding parties initially. And then for ranked choice voting, again, the ranked choice voting is not contemplated in any of the provisions related to recounts. And there are not currently any ranked choice voting elections scheduled as of now, but we thought it was important to have these listed, at least there's some key questions. So generally speaking, ranked choice voting for recount will follow all of the provisions that are laid out. And so the process will be similar to what we already have. And that is going to be very dependent on guidance from ELECT, because depending on the vendor, the recount procedures, the tabulation procedures will vary. So there's not a lot of specificity for recounts, but there is one important question that is answered in terms of when is a recount triggered in a ranked choice voting election. And our determination is that it best lines up with the current recount provisions if you limit the eligibility determination to a single round in a ranked choice voting election. So when a person reaches the election threshold, that's the point at which determination is made whether there's a recount eligible or not. Anything beyond that, we will address to the General Assembly in our ranked choice voting report that we are preparing for them. That will include some recommendations about legislation to include the recount procedures. And with that, I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you very much. Any members have any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So being from the jurisdiction that had ranked choice voting, I know they're not planning to have it, at least for the next election. I'm just thinking how recounts would work in an election like we just had, where there are two candidates or the two positions to be filled, and it's treated as if it's one election, right? So under single transferable vote, whoever gets across the threshold first, their votes are then allocated proportionally to the other people. So would the trigger in that case be after the person wins the first position or after their votes are allocated under single transferable vote to the second, eventually the second winner?
Yeah, and confining it to a round is part of the reason. And the multi-winner races for ranked choice is the reason. So we would treat each winner as an individual winner whose election win could trigger a recount. So say a person reaches the election threshold in the third round of ranked choice voting, anybody that is within the margin of that candidate in that round could file a recount petition for that winner against that winner, and then say the next winner wins in the fifth round. Anybody that's within the margin of that person at that point would be able to file a petition from that round.
Okay. And the margin is still 1%, and the candidate pays for the recount, 0.5%, and the state pays.
Yeah, all of the provisions are the same. And I mean, that does create some issues with ranked choice voting because, for example, there's the provisions apply to all elections, and there's a provision that says any write-ins, overvotes, undervotes must be hand counted. And in ranked choice voting, you're going to have a lot of those by nature of how it works. So, but we will follow as closely as we can to what's required in the code.
Got it. And I could be proven completely wrong, but I would guess with ranked choice voting, the swings are so large between rounds that I would imagine it's going to be rare to trigger the recount thresholds, but would be proven wrong.
It's rare that an election's won by one vote, but it happens. I have one quick question, which just shows my ignorance. Do we have many local races? Do we have many local races in Virginia that have multiple winners?
I don't know off the top of my head how many there are, but I don't believe there are a lot of multi-winner races, and then in the context of ranked choice, right, we were lucky enough to get one of them for our first go at it.
All right. Anybody have any more questions? Is there a motion? Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I move the board adopt the recount step-by-step instructions as revised.
Second.
Call the roll, please.
Chairman O'Bannon.
Aye.
Vice
Aye.
Chair Dance.
Aye.
Delegate Marix.
Aye.
Mr. Weinstein.
Aye.
Secretary Elvis Long, aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right. Ms. Alexander, welcome. Why we saved the best for last.
That's right. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Stand By Your Ad for August. Today's are pretty straightforward, and I've come packed with everything you could ever ask me. Our first one, all of these cases, we started out with about 70, whittled them down to 14. And so now, are you ready to start? These are the people who've made it to SBYA, it was an SBYA account, complaint, which means it had something to do with actual Stand By Your Ad issues. And these are all express advocacy issues, so they all qualified to come to you. Our first one is Clinton for Virginia. Do I have to work the clicker? Oh, Franchel's gonna drive for me. You notice we're gonna go ahead and do all General Assembly first. That way we can go ahead and keep those penalties in mind. First penalty is $100. Second penalties are $300 for every violation, but no one here has been before us before. So everybody's gonna be $100 per violation. And our first one here is Clinton for Virginia. Mr. Jenkins is presently a delegate in the General Assembly. He has 4 undisclosed banners on his truck. And I believe Mr. Jenkins, he's online.
Thank you. Yes, I am here. Thank you all for this opportunity. I definitely see the banners, and I do want to say that there was no intentional violation on those banners. We sent them to the press, and the press did not put the disclosure on there. I don't know how they missed it, but and we didn't check it once the banners arrived. So we didn't do that intentionally. But what we did was we put these banners on the platform. The vehicle being the platform. If you look at the very top of the sign at the top, there are disclosures all around the platform with the vehicle. They're not on the individual banners, but the banners are secured to the vehicles with the sign at the top with the disclosure that's clearly visible and can be seen on the platform as a whole. So there is a disclosure there on the whole on the one piece platform, but the banners individually, there is no disclosure on each individual banner. That was a one-time use. When it was brought to our attention by you all, we are disposing of those banners. So there was no ill will or intent. But on the platform itself, which is the vehicle, there is a disclosure at the very top that can clearly be seen by everyone all around.
All right, thank you very much. Any members of the board have any questions?
Mr. Chair,
Yes, ma'am.
I am looking at the nice pictures, but I don't see the disclosure on the truck. Am I supposed to be able to see it, or I'm not supposed to be able to see it because we only have a picture, and make the assumption that that something in that red has a disclosure on it because that's the red panel of the truck?
That issue there, the disclosure is up on the little yard sign, but the disclosure is for that particular yard sign and not for each individual banner.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, is there a motion? Don?
Oh, go to the next one. The recommended motion is there.
We're going to do each one of these separately?
Unfortunately, yes.
So,
Do the $100.
times the 4.
Whatever.
Whatever the
Per violation.
recommended.
first-
Per violation is $100, so it's a
That'd be
$400
total.
violation.
So it'd be 4.
Yes, sir.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, call the roll.
Chairman O'Bannon.
Aye.
Vice Chair Dance.
Aye.
Delegate Marix.
Aye.
Mr. Weinstein.
Aye.
Secretary Elvis Long, aye.
All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Jenkins.
Thank you. And Delegate Jenkins, you don't have to dispose of the banners. You can just put disclosure on them now and continue to use them.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
You're welcome. Our next one up is Committee to Elect Kim Sudderth. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that. Ms. Sudderth has one sign that has been complained about. But the interesting thing about this one is Ms. Sudderth sent in, I guess what you'd call a mea culpa, on May 16th, saying that she had forgotten her disclosure. At that point, we had no complaints. On May 22nd, we received the first complaint. I believe it, yes, May 22nd is when we received the first complaint against Ms. Sudderth. She did, she has remediated the issue by adding the paid for by Committee to Elect Kim Sudderth. If you move to the next one, please. I didn't know I was that exciting. So if you move on to the next one, you can go ahead and see where she's gone ahead and disclosed it. So she's covered that. So the recommended penalty is $100 for this one. And I believe Ms. Sudderth is on the line with us.
Yes, I am. And you did pronounce my last name correctly. Thank you very much. And I want to thank everyone, Chairperson Senator O'Bannon and Vice Chair Dance and the other commissioners. Thank you for allowing this opportunity to speak up. I'll go ahead and admit that I'm a first-time candidate myself. I never ran for anything before, not even homecoming queen. And so there was a steep learning curve. I'm very proud of the campaign that we ran, but at the time when we had the sign printed, when we, at the time, our vendor was unavailable. Our normal vendor was unavailable. She had had a death in the family. And so when we sent it out for printing, obviously there was a mistake made in omitting the disclosure. And so, and I thank you, and I apologize, I didn't catch your name. So, but I wanted to thank you for making sure that it's on the record that immediately we rectified the situation. We went and had some vinyls printed, and we immediately changed it, and we reached out directly to the Board of Elections to let you know. So again, you know, that was definitely a mistake, and it will not happen again. And we're very, very sorry for it happening at all. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. Any members have any questions? Is there a motion?
Chairman, she reached out to us
Yes, on the 16th.
and she corrected it.
Yes, she
And she's
did.
a first-time candidate. She hadn't run before.
She has not run, not that I'm aware of, no. This is her first time before the board as well.
Well, you know, I'm inclined to give it. I don't know if I need to make that a motion, just don't make a motion.
Well, let me ask, is there I don't want to open a Pandora's box here.
I'll shut it if you do.
Did I see later on in your side presentation where there is an alternative of a $25?
That is for local and constitutional
Does
offices
not
only.
apply to the House.
Does not apply to the General
Got it.
Assembly candidate.
All right, then board will work by motion.
Mr. Chairman, I'm with Mr. Delegate Merrick's. I think as a first-time offender, I don't,
Ms. Alexander.
I hesitate with that because we
They're
do
all-
hold, especially these are General Assembly candidates, and we hold them to a higher standard because they are literally the people who make the laws that, and we expect them to obey the laws. We have the candidate summary of laws and policies always available to them on the website. Everything's ready. It's in the candidate bulletin. There's very little excuse, quite honestly.
I'll do it.
I don't know.
Okay, just so, I'll move that we accept the recommendation of the department with all due respect to the candidate regarding the penalty of $100. And if it fails to get a second, so be it. Fails to get a second. All right, So we'll pass that one by for today, and I do want to thank our candidates for being
Yes.
proactive and upfront. Apparently-
Yes, she was.
It
She
apparently
was.
paid off today.
Our next one is another General Assembly candidate, Ken O'Brien. He has 2 yard signs and 1 car magnet that have not been disclosed. Do we have Mr. O'Brien with us today? Okay, so that just leaves us with the
Yes, ma'am.
2
Can
yard
you hear me?
sign. Oh, there he is.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I had to get unmuted. First of all, I'd like to apologize that you need to spend valuable time on this. Second of all, I am guilty. This was a carelessness on my part. I had yard signs and magnets already printed. I was running low, so I went and ordered additional. When I did that, I copied the wrong file. I copied the initial draft versus the final on both the yard signs and the magnets that did not have the disclaimer on it. They came in. I'm a defense contractor and was working. One of my campaign managers picked them up from my house and started to distribute them. About a week into that, I was told that I had signs up that did not have the disclaimer on them. Just not that many. There was a few other than additional than what you see there. I immediately went down to the printers in the afternoon, had an adhesive sticker with the disclaimer printed on it, and then spent the night going out based on where my individual campaign assistant told me that the signs and the magnets were and corrected them. But they were up for about a week without the sign on it, and it was totally due to my error.
All right, thank you very much for sharing that information with us.
The recommended total for this one is $300. That's $100 for each sign and 1 magnet.
All right, any members have any questions? There a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move we
Thank you, Wackett.
go with the recommendation of $300. I move that we go with a recommendation of $300.
Is there a second?
Second.
All the roll. Aye.
Vice
All right,
Chair
thank you very
Dance,
much.
Aye.
Thank you.
Delegate Merrick's,
Aye.
Mr. Weinstein,
Aye.
Secretary Elvis Long, aye.
All right, next.
All right, our final General Assembly candidate is Rod Thompson for HD 84. He has 5 undisclosed signs. Mr. Thompson with us today?
I am. Can you hear me?
Welcome.
Thank you. Yes, I just want to address it just like everybody else. I was a first-time candidate. I honestly didn't know better. I understand that I'm being held to a higher standard because I was running for the House, and I understand that as well. It's no excuse. I should have done a little bit more research, learned the laws as they applied. I'm a 23-year Navy vet. I had the integrity to own this. I am going to apologize, obviously, and sort of throw myself before the mercy of the board. I did lose my primary, and coming out of that campaign, I am pretty much at zero, and they kind of left me a little bit in the personal financial extremis. So, like I said, I'm throwing myself before the mercy of the board here. The signs are obviously all gone because I lost. And then I did not know, and moving forward, any office I run for, this is a very harsh lesson learned for what to do and how to do it right.
Thank you very much. Any members have any questions? Did you
All right, recommendation is $500 for this one.
based on that? All right. Is there a motion? Matthew?
And yeah, Mr. Chair, I move, subject to the board's authority under the Code of Virginia 24.2-95.3, to find Rod Thompson in violation of 24.2-956, stand by your ad, print media, disclosure requirements with regard to the 3 print media advertisements, and assess a $500 civil penalty.
O'Bannon, Vice Chair Dance,
Aye.
Delegate Merrick's,
Aye.
Mr. Weinstein,
Aye.
Secretary Elvis Long, aye.
So thank you for joining us, Mr. Thompson. I just want to remind everybody that this is not fun nor something we enjoy doing. This is an obligation afforded to us by the Code of Virginia and the members of the General Assembly. So this is not personal at all, and we appreciate everybody participating in the political process.
All right, now we're going to move on to local and constitutional candidates, I almost said characters, that wouldn't have been right at all. It's the candidates for local office. The first one up is G.R. Metz. This is Mr. Gordon Metz. He is running for Reed Creek Supervisor. We received a complaint from his general registrar. That's why you have that whole little bit there, so it tells the whole backstory. Mr. Metz did not have a statement of organization on file, nor did he have any disclosure on anything. And according to his registrar, he wasn't going to put anything on, he said. So his recommendation is that he receive the $50 civil penalty, which is the penalty for one sign for the first time before the board. And I believe, is Mr. Metz with us, or Ms. Stoltz Vaughn may be with us? GR from Henry County.
Yes, ma'am, I'm here.
Welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Did you want to say anything?
Yes, he has since complied. He apparently purchased some stickers to place on the signs that were not disclosed as he originally planned to. So he has tried his best to rectify it and since filed a statement of organization.
Thank you.
So this is one of the, oh, sorry, this is one of the situations that if you all agree that no harm has been done, you can reduce it to $25.
Mr. Chairman, I really feel like if he's corrected it and according to the registrar, he has and trying to, and this is his first.
Yes, sir.
So I would recommend the $25 fine.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, call the roll.
Chairman O'Bannon.
Aye.
Vice Chair Dance.
Aye.
Delegate Merrick's.
Aye.
Mr. Weinstein.
Just clarity, this is the $25, not 50?
Correct.
All right, no.
And Secretary Alvis Long, aye.
Okay, it has to be unanimous to go for 25.
Okay.
Well, then
So-
it failed.
All right, let's try again. I'm not sure how that works. How does this work, Mr. Andrews?
Go ahead.
Well, in that case, then we need to charge him $50.
Okay,
So we need another motion, right?
Yep.
I make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
Call the roll.
Chairman O'Bannon.
Aye.
Vice Chair Dance.
Aye.
Delegate Merrick's.
Aye.
Mr. Weinstein.
And I just want to say thank you to the candidate for rectifying it, but in my view, a violation's a violation, so aye.
And Secretary Alvis Long, aye.
thank you. We're going to move along to Friends of Candidate Stone. Mr. Stone has two signs out. You'll notice too on the violation dates, I've actually gone past June 30th because the second violation came in on 7/18. So if we were to bring him back in January, he would have to pay double. But since the notifications hadn't gone out, I thought it would be acceptable to the board to put him on this. This way, he's still qualified for the $25 first-time offender award, if you all agree, or $100 for two signs at $50 each. I don't believe there was any malfeasance in here, or I would recommend $25 myself. Mr. Stone cannot be with us today. His mother passed away yesterday.
Questions? Is there a motion?
I move subject to the board's authority under the Code of Virginia 24.2-955.3 to find Kel Stone in violation of 24.2-956 stand by your ad print media disclosure requirements with regard to two print media advertisements and assess a $25 civil penalty since it was his first offense.
Is there a second? Call the roll.
Chairman O'Bannon. Vice Chair Dance.
Aye.
Delegate Merrick's.
Aye.
Mr. Weinstein.
I hate to be the bad guy again, but I need to be consistent, so no.
Secretary Alvis Long, aye.
I have to respect consistency.
Yep, you got to respect consistency.
Okay, next.
All right, we're gonna, not
We have
gonna
to
go
make
for
a-
another one
We
here?
have to make the motion again for 50.
Excuse me, so
Did we do that last time? Yeah, that one failed.
that one failed. Is there another motion?
I move that we fine Kel Stone $50 civil penalty.
Is there a second?
Is that 150?
I think it's 50, you said, because
It's
one was
50
after the.
per
penalty.
sign.
50%, so it'd be $100.
Yes.
Okay, sorry, $100.
Second.
Call the roll.
Chairman O'Bannon.
Aye.
Vice Chair Dance.
Aye.
Delegate Merrick's.
Aye.
Mr. Weinstein.
Aye.
Secretary Alvis Long, aye.
All right, I apologize for the chair's confusion on that one. Thank you. Next.
Okay, the next one is Friends of John Stanmeyer. He's with us here today. We have one flyer, and I know he would like to speak to this flyer, so just bring him. Doing all right. How are you? Go ahead.
Hello, members of the board. My name is Thomas Ranieri, and I represent Mr. Stanmeyer in this matter. Before I reach the facts of this particular case, I wanted to deal with a jurisdictional issue I saw when I was reading the statute, the Stanmeyer ad law statute, which I will just refer to as the statute from now on, as long as that would be understandable to you all. I'm not certain the statute covers Mr. Stanmeyer's political advertisement because he was not running for office in a general primary or special election. He was elected, or he was sent to a firehouse primary, which is run by a local Republican committee. It is not regulated by the state, and it is not run by the state. So it's not affiliated with the state in any way. And this, from my reading of this statute, it seems to be specifically for elections that are run by the government. I have facts to support this idea. I also printed out what a firehouse primary was, but I'm happy to just give you the definition. A firehouse primary, also called a firehouse caucus or unassembled caucus, is a term sometimes used in the United States to describe a primary election run by a political party, not a government, to select a party's candidate for a later general election. It is primarily a Virginia political term. And a caucus is a closed meaning of, is a closed meaning of a group of people belonging to the same political party or faction, usually to select candidates or to decide on policy. I think that, actually, let me continue. Candidates defined in 24.2-101 means a person who seeks it or campaigns for an office of the Commonwealth or one of its governmental units in a general primary or special election, and who is qualified to have his name placed on a ballot. Mr. Stanmeyer's name was not placed on a ballot. Mr. Stanmeyer was not running, he was running to run. In the same, just so you know, in the same statute, the definition statute 24.2-101, election means a general primary or special election, just to close that particular gap. The firehouse primary was run by politically active volunteers, not government agents, that used non-government equipment. It was held on a Friday for 5 hours. The ballot box was a literal cardboard box where people put marked pieces of paper that were not machine readable. And as I said, it was not subject to the rules and regulations regarding elections in the Commonwealth of Virginia because it was, in fact, a firehouse primary. But if you find still that, in fact, this is a covered advertisement, I have brought along with me the corrected versions of his sorry about that, advertisements, which include his endorsements, the Stand By Your Ad endorsements, and these flyers there was only a few of them. They were only out for about a week, and he went and collected them, reposted these with the statutes require disclosures, and is deeply sorry. He has learned a lesson. It's my experience that he's a good-hearted individual who made a mistake and then learned from it, which is something we should all aspire to. And I would ask that you not fine him anything at all, And if you do find him only $50 for the one reported advertisement. And that's all. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So just, do you all have any other information you would like to share with us on this specific complaint?
Do you have a question? I'd be happy to answer. It seems like you do. I mean,
I'll defer to the judgment of the board, but I think that's a fair question. Rather than put our our Attorney General on the spot today, I would entertain the possibility that we take your testimony today, and then we don't have an obligation to act necessarily today on this.
Not necessarily.
Right, so we'll get some advice from our attorney and then make a decision on this when we have that information at hand.
would that be another hearing? Or
It would be another
I have that information now.
agenda item, and we, that way, you're welcome to come back if you want to, but I think if I think you've made your case, and if you choose not to, that would be fine. We'll have the information then as to whether we're legally in the right posture or not.
Okay, thank you very much.
And I'm sorry, what was your name, sir?
Oh, I'm Thomas Ranieri.
Hi, Thomas Renier. How are you?
I'm very well, thank you. Did you want this? This is the one with the thing.
No, that's okay. Thank you. What Mr. Renier, and of course, I can understand him not understanding this. Ballot access and campaign finance are two different processes in election. Regardless of how he attains ballot access, he is still required to file campaign finance. Campaign finance filers are required to file under Chapter 9.5 for Stand By Your Ad. They still have to abide by that rule. Statements of organizations are required by people in nominating processes. The 947.1 clearly states an individual, not a candidate, an individual. So it could be someone who never makes a ballot, who never becomes an actual candidate. They still fall under Campaign Finance Disclosure Act and the Stand By Your Ad laws.
So you're responding to his
Yes,
concern.
that's information, an information for you that,
Okay, well,
yes.
maybe we won't have to make you come back. Mr. Andrews, are you ready to answer this question?
I'm happy to, I'm happy to look more into the question, but I agree with Tammy, Ms. Alexander. 24.2-945, which is found in Chapter 9.3 concerning the Campaign Finance Disclosure Act, does say it applies to all elections held in Virginia, including referenda and to nominating conventions, mass meetings, and other methods to nominate a political party candidate for public office. It does list certain exceptions, including for U.S. Congress, President and Vice President of the United States, or town office if the town population is less than 25,000.
So does that answer everybody's questions? Then welcome back. All right, so do y'all have anything else you need to say?
If you don't mind, I would like to say one thing. I noticed that provision as well. Obviously, it's a complicating factor I didn't want to bring before the board. My view, that part of the statute is simply clarifying what was said in the previous statement. If you look, I don't want to get too complicated, too technical, but in essence, the way I read the statute, it seems like it seems like a little bit of an overreach. You're going from, okay, here's an election, this is run by the government, this is our thing, and we have the right to regulate it. And then over to, there's an informal meeting of people who are just sort of like talking about who they think should run, and it has nothing to do with the government. I'm just curious what the intersection of the interest of the government in a firehouse primary would be such that this statute would apply. Again, the purpose of the statute is to regulate government elections. So for me, from my reading of it, that would simply also apply to that 9.3. Otherwise, you're saying that the 9.3 exception that was brought up by Mr. Andrews sort of expands the scope of the law. And I think it expands the scope of the law beyond what it should expand to. And that's what I would say to that.
Thank you for your opinion. Yes, sir.
Mr. Stanmeyer, go ahead.
Chairman O'Bannon and Vice Chair Vance and members of the board, just thank you for taking the time to consider this. I'm a first-time candidate, and this was an oversight. The firehouse primary, if that changes, whether the law applies or not, I certainly would welcome that. But regardless of that, I'm regretful that this happened because I do believe in running an honest and clean and transparent campaign. And there was nothing intentional or malfeasant here behind this. So I just wanted to say that a neighbor told me he thought maybe that I needed that disclaimer on there. And I was thought about it and I was like, I'm going to retract those ads and do a different one that did have that disclaimer, which I did the very next day. So I'm regretful that this happened, and I apologize to the board for that and to everybody who may have been affected by it. And I certainly will be paying attention and checking all the details twice on anything in the future that I produce or my campaign produces. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much for coming and your sincerity. All right, is there a motion?
Well, I'd just like to make a comment too, if that's
Yeah,
okay.
Please.
I understand Ms. Alexander and Travis Andrews, what they were saying about the codes, and I'm totally all about the code, following the codes. But in this particular case, I do have to say it is a political party nomination method that if you actually are a first-time person that's running, you may look at a code book even that would show you the 24.2-508 that states each political party shall have the power to make its own rules and regulations. And then 509, which this part is only effective until January 1, 2024. But that also states that the duly constituted authorities of a political party of a district, county, city, or town for which an office is to be filled shall have the right to determine the method by which a party nomination for that office shall be held. So it just kind of is conflicting when you've got some code that says, yes, this political party, whichever party it might be, has the authority to make its own rules, but then down into 4 chapters down, it's saying, well, now the Campaign Finance Act of 2006 is saying you have to do this. For a first-time person that's running, that's very difficult to understand. And personally, I would not, if I were the one running, I would want to do everything I could within code, especially if I'm running for public office. But it's so many hoops that the General Assembly has made so conflicting that my heart goes out to them. And although I'm going to stick by code, I can also on this board assess a penalty, and my penalty would be none. I just don't see where I can in good conscience say I'm going to penalize someone. I want to follow the law, but at the same time, there's conflicting laws here. So it's sort of like they butt heads with each other. And I just say, okay, they're going to butt heads, and just makes it 0 in my book.
All right.
I would-
Any other members of the board have any thoughts or comments?
Mr. Chairman, I understand what my colleague is saying, but having run so many and haven't had the responsibility, the thing is that we never run alone. We always have people there that we can reach out to, that if they support us. If we're the only man that's standing that thinks we should be running for an office, we're in trouble. So that's when we gather the people around us, like he said, a neighbor told him as soon as they saw it. But you find the people that you respect and ask them. It's okay to ask people before you step out to make sure you're okay, or to ask for someone to check with you to make sure you're okay. So I think we can understand what happened, but again, there is a code. And for me, I had to live by that code every election.
I agree, living by the code.
Thank you very much for those thoughts. Matthew?
Yeah, Mr. Chair, a quick question for Ms. Alexander.
Yes, sir.
Have we assessed fines for seen by your ad violations for
Yes, sir.
conventions in the
Yes.
past? And has anyone ever raised this issue before?
Yes, we've made decisions for nominating processes. Because again, like I said, ballot access, which is what everyone's arguing here, is different from campaign finance. Campaign finance can start years before any ballot access occurs.
Right. No, I agree with you, and I agree with Mr. Andrews' view that 945 captures all candidates, including ones for nominating conventions. And, sometimes we have to think about what was the intent of this statute, right? And I don't think the intent was to say, if you're not in a primary, you're exempt from stand by your ad violations. So for that reason, I would not support, exempting the fine.
All right, is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move, subject to the board's authority under the Code of Virginia 24.2-955.3, to find John Stanemeyer in violation of 24.2-956, stand by your ad print media disclosure requirements with regard to the one print media advertisement, assess a $50 civil penalty.
For a second.
I second.
All right, thank you. Call the roll.
Chairman O'Bannon,
Aye.
Vice Chair Dance,
Aye.
Delegate Merrick's,
Aye.
Mr. Weinstein.
Aye.
I'll have to be the send to Secretary Alice Long, nay.
All right. Hard to get to unanimous today. Thank you all very much.
Now we're going to move on to Mr. Nar, who you've heard from earlier today. He has two online failure to discloses on two online ads. So it's just the two. So he is listed as recommended as two print media advertisements, and you can decide how you would like to assess that penalty.
All right, Mr. Carr, you want to give you time.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and Board. I won't belabor the point, having already gone through it, but just the highlights. During the course of my campaign, I hired Potomac Local to create a series of online advertisement. The first ad, and only the first ad they published, was done without the proper disclosure and that should have accompanied it. As soon as I became aware of it, we took immediate action. No subsequent online ads, brochures, radio, sports, bumper stickers, or flyers were absent of the disclosure. I appreciate your time and consideration.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
All right. Any other?
All right, if we go with Mr. Weinstein's consistency rule, the recommended penalty is $100.
All right.
Well, we could do 25.
You could.
Only if it's unanimous.
You
Only
got,
if it's unanimous.
you got to get Mr. Weinstein to agree with you.
I'm not batting 1,000 on that. but-
Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'm gonna try this one more time. I move, subject to the board's authority under the Code of Virginia, section 24.2-955.3, to fine Mr. Nar $25.
Is there a second?
Second,
Please call the roll.
Chairman O'Bannon,
Aye.
Vice Chair Dance,
No.
Delegate Merrick's,
It doesn't matter.
That motion failed for lack of being unanimous. Is there another motion?
Mr. Chair, I move, subject to the board's authority under the Code of Virginia 24.2-955.3, to find Kenneth Nar in violation of 24.2-956, stand by your ad print media disclosure requirements with regard to two print media advertisements, assess a $100 civil penalty.
Is there a second?
Second.
Call the roll.
Chairman O'Bannon,
Aye.
Vice Chair Dance,
Aye.
Delegate Merrick's,
Nay.
Mr. Weinstein,
Aye.
Secretary Elvis Long, nay.
All right. Thank you very much for coming down and for running for office. And it's a learning curve for all of us.
All right.
Ms.
Now,
Alexander.
now we have Friends of Tim. I'm sorry, Tim, is it Sanson or Sansoni? See, I was going to make them all fancy here. The issue with this one is we received 3 flyers that were undisclosed. Mr. Sansoni contacted me and I talked it over with him. He has provided evidence that his printer is the one who inadvertently left off the authorization. He has the proof with him today and a letter from his printer. So I would move that this be, or I would request that you dismiss this case.
Mr. Chairman, may I ask a question?
Yeah.
Is this another one of the party nomination methods that was a mass meeting?
I have no idea.
It
was a mass meeting.
Just judging by this, it looked like it was, and I would have the same thing that I said
Yeah.
before, so.
If I can speak and address the board. You have, templates. Can I just give that to you? Give it to
Yeah,
them?
I'll take it.
I'd like to just preface this too with, I'm also a first-time candidate. I'm 29 years old, running for Louisa County Sheriff. 28 years old at the time I started my campaign. And like I said before, this was a mass meeting back in May. Members of the board, I am in receipt of Ms. Tammy Alexander's letter on behalf of the board dated July 25th, 2023, and I wish to refute the alleged violations of Virginia Stand By Your Ad law as stated in said letter. Per Ms. Alexander's letter, there seems to be one alleged violation on two separate occasions, March 5th, 2022 and April 8th, 2023. First, it is impossible for there to have been any violation on March 5th, 2022, since my candidacy wasn't even announced until February 2023, 11 months after the first alleged violation. Secondly, the flyers in question were not even ordered until sometime after March 13th, 2023. So even if the alleged violation date of March 5th, 2022 was a typographical error and should have read March 5th, 2023, it still would have been impossible for there to have been a violation since the flyers did not exist until sometime after March 13th, 2023. Enclosed is an email correspondence between my campaign and our vendor responsible for publishing our literature, the publishing of our literature. Beyond the first discredited violation, I would like to address the other alleged violation, which the complainants claim to have occurred on April 8th, 2023. On March 13th, 2023, my campaign ordered 2,500 palm card flyers to be distributed by my campaign's contracted professional canvassers. My campaign contracted with Midtown Printing and Design of Louisa County to design and publish these palm card flyers in question, and my campaign contracted with Fox Bryant LLC for professional canvassing. While Midtown Printing and Design managed the design, layout, and printing of this material, my campaign was responsible for the written content that was to be displayed on the flyers. Being keenly aware of the gravity of campaign disclosure laws, I personally ensured that the content we provided Midtown Printing and Design contained the required statutory disclosures in accordance with Virginia Stand By Your Ad law. Enclosed is a copy of the content I personally transmitted to Midtown Printing and Design prior to publishing, which they confirmed receipt of receiving. You'll notice on that it has the disclosure. That's what I personally emailed to them. Despite having received this content to be included in these flyers, including the required disclosures, Midtown Printing and Design failed to include the disclosure during the printing process. The disclosure was, however, included on the digital proof submitted to us by Midtown Printing and Design before they were approved for printing, which is why we authorized them to proceed with the order. However, an error occurred with Midtown Printing and Design during the printing process as the final product did not include the required disclosure. Since these 2,500 flyers were drop shipped directly to the Fox Bryant canvassers to be handed out during their door knocking efforts, my campaign did not have the opportunity to detect this printing error before they began to be distributed. Very shortly after door knocking operations began, a canvasser brought this error to our campaign's attention, and it was promptly rectified by ordering a new batch of flyers which contained the required disclosure. The 2,500 original flyers lacking the disclosure were all recalled, and the few which were inadvertently disseminated by our canvassers were swiftly replaced by the new updated flyers featuring the disclosure, and our canvassers revisited the few individuals who received one of the original flyers to issue them an updated version containing the required disclosure. Despite this printing error and oversight by Midtown Printing and Design, every individual, the few that were visited before the error was quickly detected, including the complainants who received these flyers, received them from our canvassers who introduced themselves as being with, quote, Friends of Tim Sampson for Sheriff, where they verbally provided the required disclosure information. In addition to verbal disclosure of origin of this print media, all versions of the flyers contained a QR code that linked directly to my campaign's website, which prominently displayed the required disclosure on every page of the website. This QR code in and of itself served as a, quote, digital signature and digital disclosure of who was responsible for the authorization and payment of these flyers, the few which were actually disseminated. Enclosed is a screenshot of my campaign website where the QR code was linked to, prominently featuring the required disclosure. Once we detected Midtown Printing and Design's error and remedied it through ordering new palm cards containing the required written disclosure, my campaign paid Fox Bryant to canvass the same precincts 3 times over. So any individuals beyond the complainants, if there were any, quickly received updated, revised material which was identical to the original flyers, except now included the required disclosure. Enclosed is a copy of the updated flyers which were ordered to replace the original flyers lacking the required disclosure. In response to the complainant's allegations, it is important to note that Virginia Code Section 24.2-955.3, Section E states, it shall not be deemed a violation of this chapter if the contents of the disclosure legend or statement convey the required information. Additionally, Virginia Code Section 24.2-956, Section 5 states, any print media advertisement appearing in an electronic format shall display the disclosure statement in a minimum font size of 7 point. However, if the advertisement lacks sufficient space for disclosure statement and minimum font size of 7 point, the advertisement may meet disclosure requirements if, by clicking on the print media advertisement appearing in electronic format, the viewer is taken to a landing page or home page that displays the disclosure statement in a conspicuous manner. While the first complaint in Ms. Alexander's letter is unfounded due to allegedly taking place before my candidacy was ever announced or the flyers even existed, the other complaints are also invalid due to the fact that this error was, 1, the fault of Midtown Printing and Design and outside of my campaign's control, 2, my campaign performed due diligence prior to ordering these flyers to ensure that all campaign disclosure laws were followed, and 3, despite the error being Midtown Printing and Design's own fault, my campaign promptly took action to mitigate Midtown's mistake by recalling all 2,500 flyers, ordering new ones, and revisiting every single individual who received an original flyer to provide them with an updated one containing the required disclosure, including the complainants. As stated previously, even those who initially received an incorrect flyer still had the required disclosure information verbally disseminated to them by our canvassers, and this information was readily accessible to them by clicking the QR code link on the print media they were given pursuant to Section 24.2-956. Both I and my campaign take these allegations very seriously, and more importantly, we make it a priority to observe all campaign finance and disclosure laws too. Our commitment to following these laws, including the Stand By Your Ad law, is evident through the events which transpired in this matter. However, despite the original flyers lacking a written disclosure, we assert that they were compliant under Virginia's Stand By Your Ad law, since disclosure was provided both, 1, verbally by our canvassers, and 2, electronically via a QR code linking to our website where the disclosure is prominently displayed in accordance with Section 24.2-956. While the advertisement proof we approved contained a written disclosure prior to printing, my campaign nonetheless swiftly mitigated Midtown's printing error by taking necessary steps to ensure that individuals who received the original flyers received updated advertisements featuring a written disclosure just in case. Given the facts of this case, the mitigating circumstances, and upon review of the relevant code sections, I respectfully request that the board not find my campaign in violation of the Stand By Your Ad law. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Alexander.
Hello, that is actually March 5th and March 22nd and April 8th of 2023. I was running out of space and I didn't think that it would look like it meant 2022. It's actually March 5th and March 22nd. So all these complaints came in after March 1st. But I am recommending that we dismiss this case because he did bring in the proof that shows that he did have the original proof done with the disclosure.
So that's the basis in which
Yeah.
you've changed your mind.
Exactly. He sent in the print, the printers left off the disclosure. This would not be the first time that's happened.
And the proof we were given, not only did the content of the draft we provided them contain the disclosure, the proof they sent back saying, is this good to print, that I have personally approved, showed the flyer at the end, the flyer that actually has the disclosure. That's what I approved electronically. What came out of the printer was the one that was in the complaint. But they were drop shipped directly to our canvassers. So there was no way for us to detect this until it was brought to our attention by our canvassers. But we immediately took action once it was reported.
Any members have any questions?
No.
Matthew?
I may surprise you all. I am supportive of dismissing this complaint because it seems grounded in 956, which the QR code I think is persuasive as well. And I do want to thank the candidate for a very thoughtful letter and all the context. And clearly, you value complying with the law. So for that reason, I would support waiving the fine.
Sounds good.
Committee works by motion.
I make a motion that we dismiss the case.
Is there a second?
Yep. Second.
Call roll.
Chairman O'Bannon,
Aye.
Vice Chair Dance,
Aye.
Delegate Merrick's,
Aye.
Mr. Weinstein,
Aye.
Secretary Elvis Long, aye.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next up, we have Friends of Tom McKenna. Mr. McKenna, we have one sign and one website. Now, you'll notice the one sign we have, it's only the front side of the sign. Further information came in after this was produced that there was disclosure on the back of the sign. So now I would only like to present just the website as being undisclosed. It was checked upon receiving the complaint. So it was checked back on April 17th and it did not have the disclosure at that time.
All right. Mr. McKenna.
Mr. McKenna.
Sure. Members of the board, thanks for hearing me. I'm going to, at the risk of sounding repetitive, first-time candidate. I was asked to get involved with the race by the sheriff. I got a very exuberant start, or started ordering all these things. And then a good friend of mine said, wait a minute, we don't have disclosures on these. So like so many of the other folks you've heard, I immediately went out, purchased some stickers, went around to the 5 or 10 signs we had out, put the stickers on the signs. And corrected the printed material and as well as the website as soon as we discovered the error. So I guess I'm throwing myself on the mercy of the board. And I will not be running again. That's getting a little too old in the tooth for that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for coming and speaking to us. Ms. Alexander.
All right, the recommended, if we're going to stick with Mr. Weinstein's consistency, it's going to be $50.
All right. Is there a motion?
Mr. Chair, I move subject to the board's authority under the Code of Virginia 24.2-955.3, find Tom McKenna in violation of 24.2-956, stand by your ad print media disclosure requirements with regard to, I guess it will be one print media advertisement and assess a $50 penalty.
Is there a second? Second. Call the roll.
Chairman O'Bannon.
Aye.
Vice Chair Dance.
Aye.
Delegate Merrick's.
Aye.
Mr. Weinstein.
Aye.
Secretary Alvis Long, aye.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. McKenna. Next up, we have Kyle Matt Moore for sheriff. He has one undisclosed truck sign, which is quite fabulous if you ask me, but it's undisclosed. Since then, Mr. Moore, Mr. Moore, so many names. Mr. Moore has changed disclosure on his sign, so he has now complied. But he is also a first-time candidate, and so I recommend for Mr. Weinstein the $50 penalty, and I believe we have Mr. Kyle Matt Moore online.
Welcome, Mr. Moore.
Can you hear me now, sir?
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I'm sorry. Mr. Chairman, thank you for hearing me today, and thank you for your board. It's been a lengthy day, and I'm sure you're ready to go home. I had asked that the board review my case with an explanation. I am running for the office of Sheriff of Allegheny County, and this is the first election for me as well. I had a sticker placed on the back window of my truck. It did fail to have the disclosure statement paid for by the candidate's name on January 17th. This was just a few days after I had announced my campaign. And I am admitting that this was an honest mistake on my behalf. I realize I am a very much proponent of the code, but mistakes happen, sir. And this was a mistake. The mistake has been corrected. And as I said earlier, this is my first election. I'm a retired Master Sergeant with the United States Army and also a retired Virginia State Trooper. I'm trying to run an honest and decent campaign. And as you see, I have forwarded pictures of the correction. I have had campaigns stolen during this campaign. And, I'm sure that's something that each of you are used to as well. But, the complainant is an employee of my competitor, and I'm not using that as an excuse. I made a mistake, and I'm willing to pay my civil penalty if that is the judgment of the board. I just wanted you to know that these things are going on statewide, and I hope that thank you for your committee and your time for hearing me out.
Thank you very much for your service and for your honesty in coming forward today. We appreciate that.
Yes, sir.
Ms. Alexander.
So my recommendation is to assess a first-time penalty of $50 for this violation.
All right.
Unless you guys want to try for that 25 again.
Is there a motion?
That chuckle tells me no.
Mr. Chairman, I move subject to the board's authority under the Code of Virginia 24.2-955.3 to find Kyle Moore in violation of 24.2 956 stand by your ed media disclosure requirement or the decal with a $50 fine.
Is there a second?
Second.
Call the roll.
Chairman O'Bannon,
Aye.
Vice Chair Dance,
Aye.
Delegate Merrick's,
Aye.
Mr. Weinstein,
Aye.
Secretary Elvis Long, aye.
All right, next.
And now we have Mr. McCracken for BOS, CC 2300983. We have 3 signs and 1 door hanger.
I'm here.
Yep, Mr. McCracken is with us here today. He did send in a letter, but since he is here to speak, I will let him go ahead and speak.
Mr.
That's the will of the
McCracken,
board.
welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Board. And Ms. Tammy Alexander, I appreciate the passion, energy, and joy you obviously have in your vocation. Thank you for that. In 2015, I ran a successful school board campaign. All the materials lacked any disclaimers. It was my first time into politics. It was never brought to my attention. This year, running for the Board of Supervisors, the same person in my 2015 campaign ordered the exact same materials using the same format and I believe the same company. And again, without any disclosures, it was pure ignorance. The Roanoke Times even reported that Mr. McCracken was not doing this maliciously, but out of ignorance. Of course, that went on for many jokes that I was ignorant and I had no business running. Anyway, in May, the signs went out. 250 of the 700 door hangers were distributed before I received a call from a friend that had been privy to an email that was being circulated by local Republicans. And in that email, it was recognizing that Mr. McCracken does not have a disclosure on his signs. When somebody spoke out in the stream of emails and said, is anybody going to let him know? The reply was no, he should know better. Yet just because of that phone call, the very next day after researching myself, realizing I was in violation, the very next day we threw 6,750 door hangers in the trash can, removed every single sign, had teams out the entire next day for 12 hours removing signs. Stickers were made and attached to the signs that we took down. We also found all of the big signs that once we put everything back up, all of the big signs when we took them down in June, again, because I am withdrawing from the general election in November at this point, this is one of the reasons. But another reason is people are sending pictures of my adult daughter half, shirt off to different elected officials trying to embarrass me and my family to put pressure on us. This is just another obstacle. But anyway, I am withdrawing. And what we found is when we took down all the big signs, almost every single sticker that we had placed up had been taken down, removed from somebody or some people. So there's a few things. First, through all of this, I never to date, except for the letter from Tammy Alexander, but never did I receive any complaints or any phone calls, even from the local election office. Again, the Roanoke Times reported that even the local election office said that they were not aware that anyone from that office ever reached out to Tom McCracken. Secondly, once I heard, the very next day that I heard that through the grapevine, that I took immediate action to resolve, and I went in person to the local election office to apologize, to resolve, and find out what I needed to do to move forward in the future. Third, I am announcing this Saturday I'm withdrawing from the general election. And fourth, I truly am sorry. As many others have said, I'm a 14-year military veteran. I'm a pastor. My integrity, my word is the most important through all of this. I just want this board to know this has been a very expensive lesson. It will not be repeated in the future. Again, I am withdrawing this and many other obstacles. It's just destroyed our family, and I'm not going to move on. I would ask, though, in the future that local election offices be encouraged to serve to assist people in wanting to make a difference by getting involved, not allowing an adversarial relationship to develop. These processes, as I have heard over and over again from the board yourselves, these processes are already complicated. I believe our districts would benefit from local election offices supporting, equipping, and resourcing candidates in the process, not watching people fail, then reporting to the state election board for out of vindication. again, I truly am sorry. And I'm sorry we have to even be here today, but I do thank you all for what you do.
Thank you very much.
Right, so the recommended penalty for this would be $200.
A motion?
Go for 50.
I move, Mr. Chair, I move, subject to the board's authority under the Code of Virginia 24.2-955.3, to find Tom McCracken in violation of 24.2-956, stand by your ad print media disclosure requirements with regard to 4 print media advertisements and assess a $200 civil penalty.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, call the roll.
Chairman O'Bannon,
Aye.
Vice Chair Dance,
Aye.
Delegate Merrick's,
Aye.
Mr. Weinstein,
Aye.
Secretary Elvis Long, aye.
All right, thank you, Tammy. Next.
All right, the next one is re-elect Laurel Gerolds. She has 2 signs that are undisclosed, and they were undisclosed on April 23rd and in July. So again, she's another one that the second complaint came in after June 30th, but to prevent her from getting double penalties, I have added her into this because I had time to do that before the notices went out. So we have 2 signs for Laurel Gerolds.
All right. Is Gerald
Yes.
available?
Yes, I am. Thank you very much for the opportunity to speak. I appreciate your time. As a mom and a school board member, it's very important to me that I set an example to accept responsibility for my actions and especially my mistakes, and that's what I'm doing today. This was an oversight. Once it was brought to my attention, we immediately went out and had a short-term solution until we could get those vinyl stickers, and then we went back out and put the vinyl stickers on. I will say this is not my first campaign. None of my signs had a disclosure on the first campaign, and it wasn't brought to my attention. So I have to, in retrospect, apologize for that as well. Obviously, I'm very sad about this, but the situation has been rectified. You have those pictures there before you, and I will accept whatever penalty you place on me. I will admit that as we went out and to put these stickers on, that there were 7 citizens who said their signs have been stolen. So there are 7 signs out there without a disclosure. I'm going to assume that those have been thrown in the garbage. But if they do pop back up, I'll continue to check and make sure a sticker is affixed to those. But I did want to have full disclosure on that there are 7 signs that are missing. And each of those residents reported that those were stolen. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for taking the time to come and talk to us today and share your thoughts. Ms. Alexander?
Thank you. For this, the recommended penalty is $100.
Is there a motion?
Excuse me.
Yes.
Sir, I had informed Ms. Alexander, no, excuse me, Ms. Tyson, that I wanted to speak about this complaint after the chair had announced earlier that statements about stand by your ad problems would be held in abeyance till now. My name is Michael Peterson. I'm a resident of York County.
All right, sir.
I'm the filer of this complaint. I was very disappointed to see the signs didn't have a disclosure on them. I have circulated throughout the district that's applicable to these to Ms. Gerald's reelection, as she's told you, and there have been numerous signs. I have, of course, no knowledge, nor do I wish to, about whether any signs were stolen. But the 2 signs were up starting April 23rd and continuously up until July the 2nd. And I, as Ms. Alexander has indicated, I have filed other complaints about other signs, and these signs were available for 71 days. I am a resident of York County, as I've said, and if you travel the highways and byways of York County, every other candidate's signs have a disclosure on them. And so I don't quite understand why it took 71 days for this campaign to come up with the appropriate disclosure. Thank you for hearing me. I appreciate your time.
All right.
Yes, the two signs presented are the only two that could be clearly seen, that were two distinct individual signs. That's why the recommendation is for $50 for each sign for a total of $100.
Thank you. Any questions from the board? Is there a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I move subject to the board's authority under the Code of Virginia 24.2, 955.3 to fine Laura Geraltz in violation of 24.2, 956 standby your ad print media disclosure requirements with regard to two signs and assess of $100 penalty.
Is there a second?
Second.
All right, call the roll.
Chairman O'Bannon,
Aye.
Vice Chair Dance,
Aye.
Delegate Merrick's,
Aye.
Mr. Weinstein,
Aye.
Secretary Elvis Long, aye.
You're going to make it.
Yes, we're at the last one. All right, whoops, let's make sure I got the right page up. All right, this one is for Tanya Seibert for Commissioner of the Revenue. She has one undisclosed shirt. I would like you to recall that she did send an email just minutes before the meeting started stating that shirts are not required to have disclosure, but if you recall, we did get Governor Youngkin for his shirt, so, and a few other people. So the recommended penalty for this is $50.
All right. Is Tanya Seibert on the line?
I'm present.
Great.
Okay, I'm reviewing Code of Virginia, Chapter 9.5, Political Campaign Advertisements, 24.1, 2-955, the scope of disclosure requirements. Nowhere does it indicate that the disclosure needs to be displayed on shirts, hats, or other garments. It's clearly typed on the complaint paper by Adams, the word "one staff shirt." We have purchased signs, bumper stickers, and other print media that all look clearly marked with the disclosure. I cannot find anywhere in the code where the references are any other than the print media, radio or television. I have placed on promotional fees for an online platform. Referencing the code definition on print media. Print media means billboards, cards, newspapers, newspaper inserts, magazines, printed material, and any material disseminated through the mail, pamphlets, flyers, bumper stickers, periodical websites, electronic mail, non-video or non-audio messages placed, promoted for a fee on an online platform, yard signs, outdoor advertisements, facilities. If any single print media advertisement consists of multiple pages, folds, faces, and disclosed requirements of this section applies only to the one page, fold, or face. I'm just trying to get some clarification. Nowhere in the definition does it refer to shirts, hats, garments. I just want to put that out there, but I do want to thank the chairman and the board. I apologize for not thanking you all for taking your time today.
That's all right. Thank you very much. Ms. Alexander.
Good afternoon
It's
again.
all these people, we're all new, there's so many new candidates, and I do agree that there should be some more information because it is a lot to read through to make sure that we are accurate and we are upholding the laws. I mean, I'm running for a constitutional office, so I want to make sure that I'm doing everything by the book and right, not just for my constituents, but also for the entire board of elections.
Thank you.
Thank you. Chairman O'Bannon, the candidates bulletin is available to all candidates with links to all things for campaign finance, including the summary of laws and policies, where we have quite a long list of everything that requires disclosure, and shirts are on that list.
Thank you. Any questions from members? Is there a motion? Oh, your recommendation?
My recommendation is a $50 civil penalty.
Okay.
Well, I just have one question for either Ms. Alexander or Mr. Andrews. So based on the definition of print media, how do we get to t-shirts from there?
It's printed.
So under printed material, that's what we're putting our.
Yeah, if you look at this, would you like to see the summary of laws and policies?
No.
Okay. Yes, we've listed them all out for convenience for the candidates.
Does that include cups?
Yes. Have you seen errant cups running around, have you?
No, all mine had. Okay, any other questions or comments? All right, is there a motion?
I move subject to the board's authority under the Code of Virginia 24.2-955.3 to find Tanya Seibert in violation of 24.2-956 stand by your ad print media disclosure requirements within, and I can't read that because I have something up covering up my my script. The media advertisement and access. If I missed out a word, Mr. Chairman, that's because my screen is kind of messed up right now.
That's fine, but your recommendation is a
Is a
$50
$50 penalty.
that's been suggested by staff.
Yes.
Is there a second? Second? Oh, call the roll.
Chairman O'Bannon,
Aye.
Vice Chair Dance,
Aye.
Delegate Merrick,
Aye.
Mr. Weinstein,
Aye.
Secretary Elvis Long, aye.
That
All right.
concludes Stand By Your Ad for this one. I'll see you again in January.
So
May I ask one more question?
surely,
Okay. How do I, if I've worn these shirts times from past this date, am I going to be fined again? As long as I don't do it past today's date?
Well, I can tell you this, one more complaint has come in since. It's for a different shirt. Ms. Seibert, I would suggest either, getting a pin, a sticker, anything, just stick it on. It says paid for and authorized by, and you're covered.
Okay. All right. So I just don't want to be in violation anymore.
I understand.
we thank you.
Okay, so from this point on,
Get on there.
or do I need to address the other one that has come through?
That one won't be brought before the board until January. I just happened to glance it in the SBYA complaint folder today.
Okay. Thank you so much.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you very much. All right. Is there no other business? We have a closed session to discuss pending legal matters. You're the
Lost
hitman
five.
today.
Yeah.
I lost
Mr. Chairman, I move to
track.
reconvene. Oh, no, I don't. I move pursuant to Virginia Code Section 2.2, 3711A7, move the board go into closed session for the purpose of discussing pending and threatened litigation in accordance with Section 2.2, 3712F. Susan Beals, Commissioner of Elections, and Travis Andrews of the Office of the Attorney General will attend the closed session because their presence will reasonably aid the board in its consideration of the subject of the meeting.
Second.
Call the roll.
Chairman O'Bannon,
Aye.
Vice Chair Dance,
Aye.
Delegate Merrick,
Aye.
Mr. Weinstein,
Aye.
Secretary Elvis Long, aye.
All right, thank you all. Thank you. Delegate Merrick.
Mr. Chairman, I move to reconvene the meeting in open session and take a roll call vote certifying that to the best of each member's knowledge, only such public business matters lawfully exempted from open meeting requirements under this chapter and only such public business matters as were identified in the motion by which the closed meeting was convened were heard or discussed by the State Board of Elections.
Is there a second?
Second.
Call the roll.
Chairman O'Bannon,
Aye.
Vice Chair Dance,
Aye.
Delegate Merrick,
Aye.
Mr. Weinstein,
Aye.
Secretary Elvis Long, aye.
All right, I want to thank everybody. It's the wrong time of the meeting to do this, but I want to really thank the commissioner and all the people in the department because you guys are killing yourselves in the sense of how much work you're doing to make these elections safe. So please pass that on to everybody. And we'll try to do it a little earlier in the agenda next time. And we also have our next meeting to be determined, the date. So right now, we're looking at the 12th and whether there are alternatives because you can't.
I'll be on later time.
Okay. So let's plan on the 12th unless you hear otherwise from us. And Vice Chair Dance, thank you very much for being here.
I enjoyed it. I just can't wait to get back outside though.
All right, if there's no business, we're banging the gavel.
No, I was doing this.